Welcome to Hanif Bismi show. Ladies and gents, today episode will talk about Together for Humanity. How can we achieve the common goal of peace and prosperity? So instead of I talk about it, I will call upon Rabbi Zalman, who is the founder and national director of Together for Humanity. Please introduce your activities to 5 News and Hanif Bismi show. Thank you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here on the Hanif Bismi show. Together for Humanity takes a long-term view about how we can live together in peace and prosperity. And that is that if young people, before they harden in their prejudices, can learn interfaith and intercultural understanding, acceptance of difference at a young age, then when they grow older, they can also practice this learning and understanding and these feelings. But we do it in a particular way, and that is by introducing young people to people from different backgrounds. So it's not just one person preaching, it's actually us living our message.
If you can introduce your team, it'll be good for audience.
So today we have with us Mark van Ommen. He is from the education director of Together for Humanity.
Welcome on behalf of my show, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, Hanif, and very pleased to speak about Together for Humanity today. My background is I'm a practicing Catholic. I oversee our educational programs. Key for our educational programs is to provide hands-on and experiential learning. We believe students learn best through dialogue and through sharing of their own personal experiences.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce Calisha Bennett, and she's one of our education officers.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Hanif, for having us on your show.
Thank you for coming.
No problem. So I'm one of the educators for Together for Humanity, and in particular I design and run programs for girls in public and private schools all around New South Wales, and we're hoping to extend to the different states. And we work on strengthening the confidence, the sense of belonging, the sense of identity, inclusion, hope and aspirations of girls and students in schools.
Thank you very much. Having 3 of you on the same platform, I'm very happy to see all of 3 of you representing 3 great Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam and Christianity. Because all these 3 religions, belief system is interrelated, and based on the commonality, I would like to ask a few questions. My first, so same question, you can have your perspective, 3 different perspectives, because our theme is Together for Humanity. So my first question will be asking, because based on the common interrelated belief system, and a founder of the 3 religions is Abraham. That's what my understanding. If I'm not correct, please correct me. And my first question will be, how can each of these religions work together towards a common goal of world peace, prosperity and harmony? Please, Rabbi Zalman.
Thank you. That's a great question. In Together for Humanity, one of the things that we're very careful about is to speak for ourselves. So I can speak from my own experience, but of course I don't understand Islam, Calisha's experience, or Mark's as a Catholic, or other people's experiences, Protestants, Shia, they have different groups, Sunni, and even within Judaism. I only speak from my own way of doing Judaism. There are other types of Jews, progressive Jews, whereas I'm Orthodox and Hasidic. So there are these different differences. So with that caveat, I think that one of the things that Judaism teaches me is that a shared purpose can bring people together. That if we can see that we are created by God from one common ancestor, going back even before Abraham to Adam and Eve in the garden, The Talmud teaches us that God created humans out of just one couple or one person initially, so that no one can ever say, my ancestor is greater than your ancestor. I am superior to you, because we are all one family. So that's one very important belief in Judaism. I think in our time, where we see racism and bigotry and misunderstanding, Islamophobia, it's also important to look in our traditions for the teachings we have about compassion, about mercy. And the commandment that is the most, so there's 613 commandments in Judaism. The commandment that is written the most times is, do not oppress the stranger. Be careful about how you treat a new person from a different background who comes in to live in your community, because the stranger is a vulnerable person. If someone is different, there's a risk that someone might use their power against that person in an incorrect way. And I think if one thing that Judaism teaches me, and I'm sure that this can be found in other faiths, but of course I'll let Mark and Calisha speak for their beliefs, is that the strong must never oppress the weak. The Pharaoh is an example not to be followed. That there is a Pharaoh, or Paro in Hebrew, is against God, and God is with Moses, who stands against the Pharaoh and says, no, you might be strong, but you must not oppress the weak.
Thank you very much. Now, from Islamic perspective, could you please answer that question?
Yeah, I guess looking into the Islamic teachings, we know that, we greet each other with Assalamu alaikum, may peace be upon you, and that it's part of our spirit of the Islamic teachings to wish peace upon people, upon their lives, upon their families.
Even for a stranger when you meet.
Yeah, to never wish harm upon someone. And, when it comes to how do we work together for the common good and to establish peace and justice, solidarity on the earth, it comes down to getting to know each other and understanding each other. And even though we might disagree in some parts of belief, religiosity or lifestyles, it doesn't mean that we can't live respectfully besides each other. And we know that in Islamic history, the tradition is to live peacefully with people of different faiths within even Muslim lands, and that historically was the norm, that people would live peacefully and protected under an Islamic government as well. So this is from the true essence of our teachings, and Islam is not an intolerant and harsh and abrasive faith, and neither should Muslims be that towards others. And it doesn't mean that because we are learning about each other's faiths, working side by side, as you can see here, it doesn't mean that I now accept Christianity as my truth as well, or accept Judaism as my truth as well. We know the ayah of the Quran, Lakum dinukum waliya din. To you be your religion and to me be mine. You do you, I do me, but we can still live peacefully and respectfully amongst each other.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Can you, Mark, now from Catholic perspective, could you please explain?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the example I'd like to give is the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus taught a lot in parables because it allowed people who had limited amount of education to understand his message from the perspective of what they saw around us. And the parable of the Good Samaritan highlighted, for Catholics and Christians, that who was my neighbour? Just like Zalman and Calisha have said, it's always thinking of the other and looking for the person who's less fortunate, breaking down barriers that people who identify with a different religion might have within themselves. That's what the parable of the Good Samaritan was about. It was about reaching out to the other, even though they were Samaritan in Jesus' time. And for the people of that time, the Samaritans were often frowned upon. I'm sure Rabbi Zalman can explain more about why. But that's one of the great stories from our tradition. I also believe that if we study the Gospels, as we should as Christians, we look at the example of Jesus and look at how he included the people of his society, whether they were the Roman legions or whether they were women, whether they, had particular diseases. He welcomed everybody, and that's the example that we as Christians should look to.
So these three world religion preaches and practice peace and understanding, recognizing the diversity. Then we sit together to lead, not necessarily to accept each other, but to understand and respect each other. So thank you very much, Mark. And my next question will be, according to Judaism, the believers are waiting for a Messiah. According to Christianity, they are waiting for second coming of Jesus. According to Islam, they are also waiting for a Messiah called Imam Mahdi, along with the reappearance of Imam Mahdi and Jesus. So from your perspective, who is the Messiah? Could you please explain this concept? As are they all waiting for the same or different? From your Judaism perspective, could you please explain?
Yeah, there's a lovely Jewish joke about the Mashiach, the Messiah, that people from my Hasidic community tell. Hasidic people say that the Mashiach will be misnagid. Misnagid is an opponent. So the particular school in Judaism that I come from emphasizes prayer, love of God, joy in the commandments, celebrating the simple people. Mark talked before about Jesus saying parables for simple people. And the Hasidic movement was very much about celebrating the sincerity of the simple, not the scholarship of the wise. Because while wisdom is very treasured in Judaism, sometimes what people who are wise can also become arrogant. And they can think that they are better and that they're more beloved by God. So there was a great movement to bring back the joy and the service of God with the heart. But there were the scholars, they didn't like it. And so the scholars became known as the misnagdim, the opponents of this new path, of this joyful, mystical path. But Hasidim say that when the Mashiach comes, he'll be a misnagid. He'll be an opponent of the Hasidim, because the Hasidim say, we will follow anyone. But the opponents, if they don't get one of their people to be the Redeemer, they won't follow him. So that's the joke we say. I guess as someone who believes in the Jewish idea of the Mashiach, I also leave it to God. I think that the end of days will be a time, or the prophets say that the end of days will be a time where God will be one. There will be no arguments about God, because when the Mashiach comes, the truth will be revealed for all, and everyone will have a shared understanding.
So there is a shared understanding towards the Messiah, this matter, who he is.
Well, ultimately, right now, the Jewish idea of the Mashiach is an end to war. The parable of a lion lying with a lamb, that there will be the strong will no longer eat the weak. So this is a very big part. But also the idea of the Mashiach is very important to me in that it gives me an idea about reality. It says that the reality that we see now of great silos of wheat sitting in rich countries, people eating too much and being unhealthy in rich countries, and then other places people starving, all of the injustice that we see in the world, this is not normal. This is a temporary aberration. It's a malfunction in our planet. It's a disease in the human heart. But we believe that when God created the world, the first thing that was there is Ruach Shel Mashiach, the spirit of the Mashiach was already hovering above the water. That when God created the world, he designed it for peace. He designed it for understanding. He designed it for justice. And so the Mashiach is just kind of the true underlying nature of the world.
And peace and prosperity is coming.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Now, can you talk from Islamic perspective the same?
Yeah, I guess I'd start off the Islamic etiquette would say God knows best. And, it's a topic really beyond me. I'd leave it for the Islamic scholars to comment on as to who is the Messiah, or who will it be to the different religions. But, in a simple understanding, I would say the Messiah for each faith will be whoever that faith community perceives as that Messiah. So, God knows best what that, those times will be like. But I know that within each faith, it will be the devoted and those who are true and sincere to God who will be able to identify their Messiah. And even with that, we know as Muslims, we actually live not thinking and assuming that, I'm a Muslim, I will know the Messiah, I will be in God's army and I will be on the right path. We don't actually know that. We might be so blinded and misguided ourselves and so shallow in our understanding of our faith that we might not be able to decode those times. So we're always diligent, hopeful, trying to stay open-minded and aware, try to understand our teachings deeper, while still knowing that it will be very testing times before the end of days.
Oh, thank you very much. From a Catholic perspective, what's the return of Jesus?
Well, once again, as Calisha said, I'm not a theologian, so I think there's people more qualified to speak on the Messiah. As Christians, we believe that Jesus was the anointed one, the Messiah. We also believe that Jesus was God and man. He was fully human and fully divine. For me personally, to have a deep faith, for me is not about, okay, when I pass away, I'm going to something better, I hope. It's more about living in the moment, living in the reality. So I look to Jesus as the example of how to live, and that sustains me more than going, well, if I do live a good life, then I'm going to something better. What sustains me is if I follow the example of Jesus, then I feel more fulfilled myself, but I also make other people happy. I make a better connection with other people. That's more important for me than worrying about what happens when I pass away. I think living in the reality and living the way that Jesus taught us serves the future, but also transforms the reality.
Thank you very much. That means all the religions are really hopeful of the future. Future is not dark. Future is bright. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing about I can understand from the conversation, means there is a brighter future for us. So we have to work towards that. So means, again, together for humanity, we work together for better and brighter future. So now, my third and final question for each of what is the movement you enjoyed in working with colleagues from different faiths in promoting and understanding and accepting of diversity? Please, from your perspective.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments happened in a small town in the Northern Territory, and we had been invited to this school to talk to the children and to play games with them and help them think and think about hope, think about how they can make a brighter future for themselves and their community. One of the children was praised because he was giving things away. One of the things we'd like to teach children about is how we always have something that we can share with other communities. And so in this game, this little boy was giving things away, and the teacher said to him, praised him. And the minute the teacher praised him, he put his hand to his face. And she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "It's shame, miss." And she said, "Oh, you've got nothing to be ashamed of." This was a 2-day program, and the next day I sat down with an Aboriginal elder who was joining us. We had people from 3 faiths, but this day also an Aboriginal elder joined the team. There were 4 of us. And I told the Aboriginal elder about this, and she said, okay, I'll take care of that. And then I said to the elder, tell me, the school wants a leadership day for these children. How do we make a leadership day culturally appropriate for your Aboriginal people here in the top end in the Northern Territory? And the elder said to me, you have a tree. You have the roots, you have the trunk, you've got the branches, then you have pencils. This is a few minutes before the program. We're about to walk in, and I am completely lost. I don't understand what she's saying. But I learned something in this work, and that sometimes in cross-cultural conversation, we're not listening to each other properly. And she's trying to tell me something, but the way I'm asking her the question is not making the communication work. And I said to myself in my mind, this is a Zalman, you are not listening moment. I asked the question, she gave me an answer that doesn't fit the question, something wrong with the question. I said, Auntie Ellen, tell me, in your way, does it make any sense to say to 11-year-olds that they can be leaders? She said, no. I said, okay. What we really want is for these children to have a sense of hope, a sense that they can contribute. She said, that's the kinship system. She sat down with the kids and she explained to them how every person has a role. Every person has a role to play in Aboriginal society, and everything is someone's responsibility. Every plant, every living thing. There's kinship between people and kinship between different living things, all life forms. And the children loved what she was saying. And she said, and when we talk about shame, she said to the teacher and the students, what we mean is respect. Because no one is to put themselves above others. So for me, that was a moment of coming together of the cultures, because we use different words to talk about similar things. So in the Western culture, we talk about leadership. In Aboriginal traditions, they're talking about kinship. But the result is the same. It's about young people feeling like they can do something significant, do something meaningful. These young kids were learning about the word shame, to talk about not being arrogant, to be humble, to be respectful of their peers. But they used the word shame, and the teacher didn't understand what she's saying.
Empowering the young people.
Empowering young people and creating understanding where there are barriers, going through those barriers. That to me was a very special moment.
Thank you very much. Now, from your experience, could you please answer?
Yeah, I would say that on one occasion we were in a Jewish school and we had a presentation between a mix of presenters of different faiths and different backgrounds, and we had there was a Muslim school participating in the activities alongside with the Jewish students, and I was given the space and opportunity to tell some of my stories of the Islamophobic experiences that I've had, where someone from the general public has, yelled out abuses and things like that. So I told my story, and one of the children in the audiences, one of the Jewish students, wanted to say that I'm sorry that happened to you. Like, they wanted to apologize that had happened to me, when it wasn't even that child's responsibility to say sorry for what some random stranger did in another time, in another place. So I thought that was beautiful, beautifully showcasing the empathy and the compassion that children are learning through just hearing different stories and experiences. And we're called together for humanity, so we need to actually show the children and connect them to this concept of humanity. And hearing that Jewish student say that to me as a Muslim woman, it was a gesture of humanity. I'm sorry that happened to you. And even after this actual session that we had, I was on my way home on public transport. I stopped in the park to do my prayers. And as I was praying, I finished praying and I looked over, and one of the other staff members of Together for Humanity, she was sitting on a bench about 10 meters away. And then I was like, what are you doing here? She's like, I saw you praying and I thought, I can't let you pray on your own. Someone might do something and I'll never forgive myself if I don't keep watch. So even that, it impacted a fellow co-worker to feel just protective of another person in humanity. And again, I don't feel like anyone owes me anything. I know that I have to stand on my own, look after myself, protect myself. But to know that there are other human beings, whether adults or children, ready to put an arm out and protect you in society, that just reminds me of the importance of the work that we do.
That's great, respect the rights of others. That's what I understand from you. What's your experience, Mark?
I think of all the school leaders and teachers who contact us and want to talk to us about the programs that we offer. For me, that's quite humbling, because they've got a deep desire to do more for their school community. They've got a desire to make everyone feel included and welcome, which we've already spoken about. There's a common thread through our three faiths, and I believe all faiths for that matter. But also there's a desire for understanding. And a key thing in our programs, often the first thing that we do in our programs, is we ask the students or the teachers to look inwards a bit and see the things that have shaped their identity. Oftentimes it's faith, Oftentimes it's their experiences, their family, because to understand the other, you need to understand yourself first of all. And that's really key. I believe it gives a grounding to develop empathy. When I'm working with Zalman, Calisha, the rest of our team, with the teachers, with the students, I don't look at Zalman as Zalman the rabbi or Calisha as the Muslim woman. I look at Zalman as Zalman. Yes, his faith is a big part of his identity, but Zalman is an individual. There is only one Zalman in the world. Thank God that there's not more Zalmans in the world, but we are lucky that we've got one Zalman and we've got one Calisha. So when we talk about faith, I see faith as contributing to somebody's identity, contributing to part of who a person is, but ultimately that person is shaped by many factors, not just faith. And that's what sustains me for the work we do at Together for Humanity. We are always learning about the other, because by learning about the other, hopefully that develops the empathy and the understanding. We don't want, Australian society would be really boring if everyone was the same. I think what adds to the richness of our society is that we are made up of so many people from different backgrounds, different opinions, different faiths. That's what enriches our society.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. So I understand and I conclude this show from three of you, three great representation of great religion, means understanding others is very important. To understand others, we have to understand myself. I understand my own religion to understand your religion. Because most of the time what happens is I want to impose my ideas to others. That's where the conflict comes. Means because my lack of my own knowledge about my own religion, that is why it's happening. That's my experience from talking to people. Secondly, respect others' right from your experience. Other one is empowering youth and empowering others. Give them space. And like Mark said, respect the identity as who you are, the other person is, regardless of what religion. So if we accept this ideology and principles, the world will be much better for future and now. So for ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude that respect others' right, so we can work together for humanity, for a better, brighter future for our new generation and for us. Thank you for listening. Hanif Bismi Show. Until next time, goodbye.